The Guptas started here in South Africa, but it's reverberated around the world. Now, German software company SAP says an independent probe found that the South African division of the firm did pay 130 million rand to Gupta-linked companies to win contracts with state firms. An outside law firm investigated 5 IT deals that SAP had with state-owned entities Eskom and Transnet. SAP says it will continue to probe all its public sector contracts in this country from 2010 for any other irregularities. However, the investigation found no evidence of any payment or attempted payment to any South African government official or employee of a state-owned company. All right, so let's go straight to Berlin. We're joined by Ira Spitzer, our correspondent there. Ira, firstly, is this an attempt to downplay? We know corruption is very hard to prove in the first place. So maybe they didn't pay any South African official. But the idea seems to be that you pay the Gupta-owned companies and they pass the money on. Is this an attempt to minimize what actually happened?
Well, SAP has certainly been in very hot water since last year when it emerged that they were paying commissions to win these contracts with those two South African state-owned enterprises. And this was an internal probe that the company undertook, and this is the maker of enterprise software, one of the largest of its kind in the world. So after this internal probe, which was carried out by an outside law firm, they found that indeed over 100 million rand was paid in commissions in order to win these contracts. And they had suspended 3 executives last year over this. They have now said that those executives have resigned without severance pay. So I would say that to some extent, it is an attempt to minimize the damage here, as you might expect, by saying, well, we did not pay any government officials. We have disciplined the executives who carried this out. We have changed our business practices. We would like to move on. That is the position of SAP. Now, they do face charges both in South Africa and from the United States, the SEC, as well as the Justice Department there. So it remains to be seen if this is the end of it. But certainly very shocking news coming out of Germany with one of the world's biggest companies today.
To put it another way, Ira, are they admitting to corruption?
Yes, they are admitting to corruption in their South African operations. I think that was pretty clear from the report that they issued, and they announced this on a conference call earlier today. They definitely, well, I guess the terminology that they used was indications of misconduct, but certainly when you look at the content of what happened there, they actually were giving commissions of 14.9% to these Gupta-linked companies. So that was just below the threshold to trigger an internal investigation. So it seems pretty clear from the report that this is corruption, even if they themselves weren't using that word.
And it's understood that these Gupta-linked companies would intercept highly confidential documents and agreements between SAP and Eskom and Transnet. How did it work exactly? What difference did it make that those documents were intercepted?
Well, they didn't really reveal the exact nature of the way that these transactions took place. It certainly does appear, as you mentioned, to have been through these Gupta-linked intermediaries, again, not having to directly speak to the Guptas or anyone in the South African government, but through these companies, these shady companies, they were certainly able to make the payments, which then led to the awarding of these extremely lucrative contracts with the state-run enterprises.
Our former president, Jacob Zuma's son, at one stage named, allegedly involved in one of the companies receiving multi-million rand kickbacks. Have you heard his name come up in this report released by this independent law firm today?
I have not seen indications of Jacob Zuma's son from the reports issued today. Now, I think if you look closely at the web of documents and of people that are implicated here, I think it is pretty clear that you do have connections to the South African political establishment, the former political establishment, but the law firm sort of only revealing exactly what they have to reveal at this point in order to try and move on with doing business both in South Africa as well as in other places. This is certainly a very shocking scandal for a German company which had sort of prided itself on being somewhat transparent. And of course, this is not SAP is not the only multinational company who has been ensnared in this scandal. The consulting firms KPMG and McKinsey also face similar charges. They themselves have not revealed the inner workings of their South African operations the way that SAP did earlier today, but there certainly could be more charges and more cases along these lines coming down the pipe.
All right, thank you very much. Ira Spitzer from Berlin. And we take a short break. Next to me is an empty chair, but I can tell you that from Monday it will be filled by one Bongani Bingwa, and he's going to join us for a chat after the break. Take a seat.